Inside this prison, a man could spend years without ever seeing another human face. Not once, not even by accident. And when the guards finally studied what isolation did to the inmates, they realized something was deeply wrong, something they could never fully reverse. In the heart of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, stands a prison that was once seen as revolutionary. Eastern State Penitentiary opened in 1829, and at the time, it wasn't just another correctional facility. It was an experiment, a controlled attempt to answer a disturbing question. What happens when a human being is completely removed from society? The system it used was called the separate system. Every prisoner was locked in total isolation. No conversations, no shared meals, no faces, no contact. Even the smallest movements were designed to prevent human interaction. Prisoners were taken outside only at carefully controlled times so they would never see another inmate even from a distance. Isolation was meant to force reflection. Reflection was supposed to lead to remorse, and remorse, in theory, would lead to rehabilitation. But the prison did not produce reflection. It produced something else entirely. Each cell was built like a sealed world. Thick stone walls surrounded every inmate. Above them, a single skylight allowed a narrow beam of daylight to enter, the only connection to the outside world. Prisoners entered through a heavy door that often forced them to bow their heads. Some believed this was symbolic, a forced gesture of humility. Others believed it was simply another form of control. Outside each cell was a small enclosed yard. High walls blocked any view of the outside world and prevented communication between inmates. Even movement was controlled. When prisoners were escorted, guards would cover their heads so they could not recognize each other or remember faces. Identity was erased piece by piece. No names, no voices, no human contact, only silence. At first, officials believed the system was working. Prisoners were quiet. Order was maintained. There were no riots, no fights, no visible chaos. But silence can be misleading. Over time, something began to change inside the prison walls. Prisoners started losing their sense of time. Days and nights blended together. Some stopped speaking entirely, even when spoken to. Others began talking to themselves, their voices filling the emptiness where human interaction should have been. Reports described inmates pacing endlessly in circles, repeating the same movements as if trying to create structure inside mental collapse. Some prisoners reportedly began experiencing hallucinations, not dramatic visions but subtle distortions of reality. The mind, deprived of stimulation, began generating its own. What was meant to be a system of reform was slowly becoming a system of psychological breakdown. The human mind was never designed for total isolation, and this prison was proving it in real time. Originally, Eastern State Penitentiary was designed for 7 cell blocks, but it filled far faster than expected. More blocks were added, then more again. Expansion became constant. At one point, the prison grew so quickly that prisoners themselves were used in construction work to build new cells. One of the final additions was reserved for the most dangerous inmates. Even guards were hesitant to enter certain sections. The structure that began as a controlled experiment was turning into something more unstable, less a reform system, and more a containment facility struggling to hold itself together. Despite the strict design, escape attempts still happened. In 1945, something extraordinary occurred. 12 inmates managed to carry out a coordinated escape attempt. Among them was the infamous bank robber Willie Sutton. Over the course of a year, they dug a tunnel beneath the prison walls, slowly and carefully without detection. The tunnel stretched approximately 97 feet. For an entire year, no one noticed. When the escape was finally discovered, investigators found not just one tunnel, but dozens of incomplete escape routes carved into the earth beneath the prison. Each one represented the same idea, a desperate attempt to escape silence itself. Throughout its history, Eastern State Penitentiary also held some of the most notorious criminals in the United States. One of them was Al Capone. Even inside the prison, he attempted to maintain a level of comfort uncommon for inmates of his time. But within these walls, status meant very little. Wealth and reputation could not change the fundamental experience of isolation. Every inmate, regardless of who they were outside, was reduced to the same condition inside: alone. The prison continued operating until 1971. When it finally closed, it was not replaced or immediately demolished. Instead, it was simply abandoned. left behind inside its own stone walls. For years after its closure, the building decayed slowly. Nature began reclaiming the structure. Plants grew through cracks in the stone, paint peeled from walls. Cells that once held people became empty shells filled only with dust and silence. Stray cats were often seen moving through the corridors, the only living presence inside a structure once designed for thousands. A place built to control human beings was now being slowly overtaken by the natural world. In 1994, Eastern State Penitentiary was reopened to the public as a museum. Today, visitors walk through the same corridors where inmates once lived in total isolation. The cell doors remain. The skylights remain. The silence, in a different form, still lingers. Some visitors say that if you stay long enough, the atmosphere begins to feel heavier, not haunted in the traditional sense, not loud or active, but still pressurized, like the building remembers what it once contained. Whether that feeling comes from history or imagination is impossible to say, but one thing remains certain. This was not just a prison. It was an experiment on the human mind. And for many who entered it, the effects never truly ended when the doors closed.